Alongside Jesse Simonton and Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price for the Rocky Top Roundtable. Rob Lewis off covering SEC basketball media days this week, guys, and 2 trips to Alabama for Rob. One midweek, and then another one on Saturday as we'll all head down there to watch Tennessee and the #1 ranked Tide.
Well, what a challenge it is for Tennessee when you look at what's in front of them with Alabama and all that they do. Offensively, certainly, they may be young defensively, but I think they're an improving defense and getting better each and every week. And the question for me is, can Tennessee keep momentum? Can they carry momentum through a game where they don't necessarily have a great shot at winning? It would be a huge upset to win. Can they carry momentum through a day, which maybe is a tough day, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about that all week, whether it be the Monday Night Chat. We've talked about it on podcasts. Now we're talking about it on the Rocky Top Roundtable. Jesse, how does Tennessee maintain momentum? And we'll start with the quarterback position because, Jeremy Pruitt calls Brian Maurer a game-time decision. Do we think Maurer plays at this point?
Well, I think it's to be determined. I mean, you can practice all week, but because it's not contact, you may not pass the concussion protocol, right, Hub? So, if he is continuing to get the #1 reps, though, one would safely surmise that he will give it a go. Now, do they play both guys? Is Jarrett Garantano, who's actually running third when we've been out there at practice, do they feel like he's going to give him a better chance if Maurer, doesn't have his wits about him or doesn't pass the concussion protocol? Then I would guess that #2 gets the shot. Right now, I would say that it wouldn't surprise me at all if they both play.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that's how you have to look at it. And again, just because he's practiced, I mean, Mason Rudolph for the Steelers practiced all week long, after getting completely knocked out in the game. And it's different when you have to get cleared for contact. The question is, if it's close, how do they handle it? How do they manage Brian Maurer this week? It's going to be interesting because I think offensively you want to keep growing, and I think to keep growing you probably need Maurer to play some, and you need him on the field. The question is, are you going to get him there?
I think for Maurer, it's all about, seeing the growth each and every week. Last week he had those 2 horrendous throws. What if he plays? What can he learn playing a defense in Alabama that's not as good as years past?
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Jesse.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, like the move we just saw right there, him, the quick slant, but also him making some plays with his legs, kind of, running around. I mean, that's what Ole Miss did to Alabama, and that's how they were able to put up some points with their freshman quarterback. So, the challenge, I guess, Brent, is that if he is coming off a concussion, how much do you want him out there running? Juwan Jennings joked that I guess he didn't play baseball because he doesn't know how to slide. So you would kind of like to see Brian, find a way to get on the ground, avoid some of those helicopter hits that he took. But I do think if he plays, his element with his legs is going to be the difference that could keep Tennessee and allow them to maybe maintain some drives that, if they're just trying to run right at Alabama. I know they have, I think, the 8th rushing defense in the SEC, which is kind of middling for Alabama standards. I'm not sure where this offensive line is, although improving, can just line up and just actually push Alabama, up front.
Well, I mean, we talked about this, at the end of last week, Tennessee's 91-yard drive. They were able to just sit there and run it in an old school drive. Yeah, you're right. Alabama's not what they were, but they're not a pushover either. Tennessee up front. Do we expect to possibly see Jameer Johnson left guard, Trey Smith right guard? Because Trey obviously did not shoot down that notion when he met with the media on Tuesday.
Well, we've seen him practice some at right guard. I think you got to be careful here, though. From Tennessee's perspective, from the coaching staff perspective, I think you got to do what you can to keep your momentum. Okay, if you want to experiment and play that lineup a little bit, maybe. I don't know if you go into this game against this team, against Alabama, and make a bunch of wholesale changes and everything, because you don't want to come out of this game just completely beat back down. Now, as soon as the game is over early Sunday morning, it's flush and go on to South Carolina. But if Jameer Johnson's not 100%, I think you maybe ease him back in some this week, but I don't know that you just blanket wholesale because you don't want to mess up a Wanye Morris who's getting better. You want to keep developing some continuity.
Does it make that move easier if Riley Locklear once again can't go?
In saying that Jameer would play over Jerome Carvin? I mean, if they feel like Jameer Johnson is healthy and the staff certainly believes that he's one of their best 5 linemen, I think you have to play your best 5 linemen. But to what Hubbs is saying, if he's not 100%, he's missed 4 games already, just really returned to the practice field the end of last week, so hasn't exactly taken a ton of reps there. I would be hesitant to rush him back. You know, even if he's not ready for South Carolina guys, I mean, Kinlaw is going to be a top 10, top 15 pick, interior defensive guy. That'd be a guy he'd go up against a ton in 2 weeks. So unless he's 100%, I'm not sure I'd rush him back.
But it always gets back to what I was talking about with Bryce Thompson. Why did you not play him against Chattanooga and knock the rust off? If Jameer Johnson's healthy enough,
can give you 20 reps,
and you can get him in the game, I don't know that you start him, but given the way you think this game's going to go, I think you get him some run, and I think you get the rust knocked off to give you a chance to see, okay, what is our best 5? Because sometimes we talk a lot about the talented and the most physical and the best 5 there. The most individually talented 5 may not be your best 5.
Yeah.
So you got to determine how much, if you start moving guys around, does it disrupt your continuity and the gel and the chemistry that Jeremy Pruitt talked about Wednesday on the SEC teleconference? Does that mess up, even though you're, quote, putting your most talented 5 out there? Are you better with the 5 you played with at the end of the Mississippi State game?
Yeah, you don't want a Jenga combination where you take something out and then suddenly it's a house of cards and it falls down.
Nice reference. I like the Jenga. We've been playing that a lot at home with my 4- and 6-year-old. Let's flip to this side. Alabama's offense can score at will on most everybody. Tennessee's defense has made some strides, especially up front. What's a successful week for this group?
Well, I think limiting explosive plays, tackling in space, continuing to grow. Don't give up one of those runs, Jesse, where it's 3 or 4 possessions in a row and all of a sudden it's a 21-0 run or a 28-0 run. I think those are the types of things that you're looking for. This is an Alabama offense averaging 51 points a game, kind of doing what they want to do. I thought Jeremy Pruitt on the teleconference on Wednesday, Jesse, summed it up best when asked to describe Alabama's offense. He said they do as good a job as anybody at the RPO, and one of the things they do with the RPO is everything is moving to the goal line. Everything is moving away from the line of scrimmage. A lot of RPOs kind of raise up and throw it on a hitch. Everything they do is going away from the line of scrimmage, and that's why they've hit so many slants and had so many big plays that way.
And the guy that's engineering it might be the best quarterback in college football. I mean, he and Joe Burrow right now are kind of going neck and neck for who's going to be that #1 guy on all the AP All-American teams. I think Tua has 27 touchdowns, just 1 interception, averaging almost 350 yards, and he's throwing to a group of receivers that we may have never seen in college football before. We're talking about 4 guys that may ultimately be drafted in the first round, which is just incredible. So it's going to be a daunting task for this Tennessee defense. Jeremy Pruitt joked on Monday that perhaps they should onside kick it. Well, you got to score at least once to do that. So other than the opening or kickoff of one of the 2 halves, Tennessee's going to have to put up some points on the board. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Vols take some interesting chances, maybe go for it on 4th down, some stuff to just kind of limit the amount of opportunities Tua has on the field.
And play your gaps on defense.
Which is what they did really well last year.
Right. Continue to grow on your defensive front. Okay. You want to come out of this game with some individuals that you say, hey, he got better this week to help us down the stretch of the season. And that's not to say you don't go in trying to win the game, because you do, Austin. But you want to come out of this game and say, boy, Greg Emerson's continuing to come on. Middleton's continuing to get better. Bryce Thompson is knocking off some rust there. Crouch is starting to learn a little bit in the interior linebacker position. Darrell Taylor's put something together back to back. Those are the types of things that are success, in my opinion, coming out of this week.
All right.
I think you got to take the ball, too, in the first half if you win the toss.
You don't think you defer and then onside kick it?
No, I think I think you take the ball with the fact that you got 1 inside linebacker that you trust right now.
I just think that's probably the biggest hole Tennessee is going to get exposed on Saturday. As much as I think Crouch has got a huge future ahead of him playing inside linebacker, I just think his head's going to be spinning with some of those guys, those crisscross routes that Alabama runs.
So many of those shallow slants that they run. They do. I mean, they have thrown so many of those 5-yard over the line of scrimmage slants that have turned into home runs. To me, that's the biggest challenge. How do you stop them in open space? Because nobody has come close to being able to do that thus far.
And we've seen Crouch struggle at times in open space, out on the edge.
And Batuli. Their linebackers have struggled in space, particularly their inside guys. And Batuli, as an outside guy, has struggled in space all year long. And now you've got to read run. And then you're going to try to throw it, by you or around you across your face. I just think it's a real challenge, as you mentioned, for those inside linebackers. We'll see what kind of answers Tennessee has. If you play zone, they tear you up. If they play man, they seem to tear you up. You need Alabama to have a rough day.
Yeah, and occasionally it does happen. Problem is, they've been waiting all year for this night game so they can just show their light show. I'm sure they'll be fired up for this one. For Jesse Salmonton, Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price for the Rocky Top Roundtable.